Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood.
This is all about helping people. That is why I am so passionate about this, because it's literally getting up every day and helping people plan for the rest of their lives. Make a plan, because I promise you're going to sleep better.
Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author, and the founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and so much more.
Let's sit down. Let's make sure we have got a holistic plan. We're not just looking at one thing.
And now, the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood.
And we welcome you into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. As always, we are here with the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary, Tim Wood. My name's Kevin McAlpin, and of course, we hope you're having a wonderful day, and we thank you so much for being with us on the show. Lots to get to on the program here today, including spending volatility. What exactly is it? And how can you put a plan in place for that volatility in your first few years of retirement? Plus, we're going to give you some common mistakes you're going to want to steer clear of if you plan to leave your home to your heirs. And later on, we're going to tell you how to break free from that one more year trap when it comes to your retirement. That plus more, but first things first, we say hello to the star of the show, and of course, my good buddy, Mr. Tim Wood. Tim, back from an amazing vacation with you and your bride. I am so jealous. Tell the folks where you went and your favorite stops along the way.
Yeah, it was awesome. For years, it's been on our bucket list. We've wanted to do one of the leaf peeping cruises that goes up into New England in the fall. And we did one that left New York and wound up ending in Quebec, stopped in Boston, stopped in Eastport, Maine, St. John, somewhere else. I can't even remember, but it was amazing. And then we loved Quebec City because it has got that old world feel. I showed you some pictures and it was just, it was absolutely great. But I am glad to be back. Already hit the ground running. This week has been crazy, and looking forward to a good show today.
Well, let's dive right into it, man, because I'm sure one of the most common things that you talk with clients about is how much you're going to spend once you reach retirement. Now, the rule of thumb has always been 70-80% of that year's working income. But a new study from JP Morgan went even further. And listen to this. It finds out that 60% of households see their spending go up and back down in the first few years of retirement. And it's something that financial planner Kevin Lum refers to as spending volatility.
Retirement spending is going to be bumpy. Some years you'll spend 20% more. Some years you'll spend 20% less. It's not a big problem as long as the averages work out and you manage the risk. But it does increase risk, because often when you first retire, spending can be a bit hard to predict because you're new to retiring. And so you might think you're going to spend $100,000 a year. If you plan for $100,000 a year and then you spend $120,000 or $150,000, it can mess up your income plan.
All right, so Tim, let's take that a step further. When it comes to putting that plan in place, how do you really, sit down with clients and help them visualize those first 3, 4, 5 years where that spending could go way up and the next year it could go way back down?
Absolutely, Kevin. And you and I have talked about this before. It's those different phases of retirement. That's really what they're talking about. And in those first few go-go years, I have clients come to me all the time that are already in the go-go years, and they're literally going all the time. One of my clients goes on a cruise every single quarter. So, which I think sounds awesome. I'm totally down for that. But yeah, having a plan, and one of the things that I work with my clients so much on is you need to have that baseline. You need to have exactly how much you need for your normal expenses. But yes, especially in those go-go years when you first retire, there's going to be years where, you want to take the trip to Ireland. And, we've always wanted to go see Madagascar or whatever the heck it is. It's going to take a chunk of change. What you need to do is you need to make sure you've got guaranteed income to cover your normal stuff, but then you also need your other money not locked up in something that you can't have access to. You need to have it in something where you have access at least to a pretty good portion of it. So if you need a chunk just for this year, pull the chunk out. That monthly income is still coming in because that's still covering your bills. That's something totally separate. So, the play money and the money that you've got to have are two totally separate things. So the money you've got to have, we have that in the guaranteed income, but then have your other money liquid enough to where you can just pull out what you want when you want it. Because like he said, there may be some years you don't need it because you might not decide to go on a trip, or maybe someone gets sick that year, or whatever, so having that flexibility is a big deal.
How often do you find that clients underestimate, what that spending looks like in retirement, right? You're sort of going from that saver mode. You're not really, you're not splurging on those big trips, right? You're shifting from one mindset completely to another. Is that a common thing that you've seen in your years doing this?
100%. Yes, 100%. And I would say, I was just, as you were asking that, I was trying to think, and I would, honest to God, probably say somewhere between 70 and 80% of my clients spend at least as much in retirement as they did working, and if not more.
Wow.
Especially those first few years. Now, I can think of some clients right off the top of my head that are the other way, that retired and they just wanted to hang out at the house, and that's what they do. And their outing of the week is they go to Texas Roadhouse once a week with the wife for dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's what you want to do, then go get them.
Yeah.
That's great. But no, absolutely. People think that their income is going to go way down in retirement. And, Social Security is only designed to replace 40% of your income when you were working. That's how it's designed. Mm-hmm. So what you going to do to get the rest of that 60% back, and in some cases 60% plus, that's where these personally directed type pension plans, like what we work with in the annuity space, that's where those come in to make sure that you've got that gap filled.
When it comes to the spending volatility, we talk about travel, hobbies, lifestyle things. That along with healthcare, do those really seem like the biggest, I guess, the lack of a better term, biggest wild cards when it comes to why things go up and down, almost like a roller coaster in retirement?
Yeah, and healthcare is probably the biggest one. I actually just had a meeting with a lady just yesterday that I'm sorry to say got a terminal illness diagnosis out of nowhere, pancreatic cancer, just out of nowhere, and that's a bad one.
Yeah,
and so you can imagine the expenses. Her and I were talking about that, and it's ridiculous. I mean, it's astronomical, and that's with insurance. She's on Medicare, but still there's, things Medicare doesn't cover, and there's limits, and that's a whole other discussion. So yeah, I mean, healthcare really is the biggest one, because the play stuff, you can control that. You know what I mean? If your wife has an issue this year, okay, well, let's not take that trip this year. We need to dedicate some funds to make sure you're taken care of and you're healthy, and we can shoot for next year going to Ireland or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, healthcare is by far, that's the biggest wild card. You mentioned that word because you don't know. The other things you can plan for. We can wait and do the back porch remodel next year. That kind of stuff you can put off. But when someone's sick, you got to do it, and you got to do it usually right then. If something happens and you need surgery, well, you got to go get it right now. It's time. So yeah, that's the biggest wild card, and having people in their plans have that emergency stash, or have their money in plans where they have access to at least a good portion of it. Or in the case of that client, a lot of the plans that we put into place, actually most of them, actually allow you to have access to 100% of your money if you ever get a terminal illness diagnosis. Now, each company has different specifics, so I mean, that's something that we'd have to get into the weeds with each individual client. But knowing if you ever get in a bad situation like that, you now have access to that whole pot of money with no penalties. That's a big deal.
Right.
Because that's exactly what she's doing. I mean, because she's got multiple plans with me, and in one of her plans that's just a growth plan, she needs that money. I mean, they're bleeding tens of thousands of dollars a month. I mean, the pills she's taking are like $600 a pill.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, she needs the money.
Yeah. If you're inching towards retirement, you want to know about spending volatility and how things are going to change from year to year, and you want to put a plan in place that can weather those ups and downs when it comes to your spending, pick up the phone. Give Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement a call today. Folks, that number is 800-913-SAFE. Again, that's 800-913-7233. Or you can always visit Tim and the team online at safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. All right, so Tim, folks who have been listening to you for a long time, they know that you are great at that storytelling, right? You have your case files. But let's get to our Safe Money Story of the Week. This is a new feature, something we're going to be doing each and every week here on the program. Tell the listeners more about it.
It is. Those who've been listening to me for years know I always did a case file at the very end of my show every single week. And I'm telling you, Kevin, honestly, this is the honest to God truth. I got the most feedback from those case files because people could put themselves into the position of someone else. You know, if I said, well, Mrs. Jones came in and this happened and this happened and this happened, there's going to be someone listening that's going to go, oh my God, that's exactly where we are right now. What did they do? Because then the rest of the story is, okay, well, here's what we found and here's what we did and here's how she walked out and here's how she is now. So I got the most response out of the case files. And for those that have read my book, my last chapter of the book is 20 case files. Literally, the last whole chapter of my book is, here's someone, here's what happened, here's how they found me, here's what we did, here's what their results were, here's the next one. So it's a really good way for people to be able to put themselves into someone else's shoes and see that, you know, hey, well, it's not just us. You know, lady down the road's got the same problem, and here's what she did, and here's what worked and didn't work. Because in the case files, sometimes I will talk about before the last financial advisor had this person doing this, and here's the results, and here's what they came to me with, which sometimes is a mess. I've got one yesterday. I've got the paper literally right here from someone that came in yesterday, and you should see the mess that the advisor got them into. Wow. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do is every single week we are going to basically go into a safe money story and explain what happened, what someone came in, why did they talk to me? What did we wind up doing? And not necessarily getting into the exact specifics of the product, but getting more into what was the result, because that's really what matters, right? I mean, what product we use, does it make any difference to you? No. What makes a difference to you is, you know, you've got the income you need. You know, you don't have to worry about any losses in the market. You know, you've got some long-term care benefit. You know, your kids are going to be covered when you're gone. All this list of things we could come up with, that's all that really matters. How we do it doesn't really matter. So that's what we're going to do in these Safe Money Stories every single week, is just talk about a real life situation that came into my office and what we did. Now, of course, I'm going to change the names and, you know, I might change a detail or two, so there's no way anything could be tracked back to anybody, but it's still going to have the essential stories, and that's something that we're just going to kick off pretty much right now today.
And obviously, guaranteed income, we talk about spending volatility, sort of ties right into this week's Safe Money Story of the Week, doesn't it?
It does, and I'll keep it really quick today because we just did that intro, but I had a lady come in, let's see, it's been about 2 weeks ago now. We're just going to call her for today. We're just going to call her Mrs. Jones. Well, Mrs. Jones had been married to a gentleman for 50-something years, and he had just passed, and he always took care of all of the finances. He was Mr. Finance, and he was literally the guy that would get in and sell stocks one day and buy stocks the next day. He was that guy, which is great. That's fine. But she had no interest in that. So all she wanted to know is that she had enough guaranteed income. So when that spending volatility was happening, she knew that she would have enough of her floor to cover all of her base needs and the ability to pull some. So the real short version of this is, we actually got her into two different plans. One was an income plan that allowed her to along with, because she was going to get his Social Security because of the survivor benefit. So she got his Social Security. That plus this plan that we put in place actually was enough to cover her floor that she needed to cover her expenses. And then we also got her into a growth plan that allowed her to pull a certain amount every single month out. So if she ever needed extra for a transmission, for a roof, for a trip with her girlfriends, for whatever, she could pull a chunk out to do whatever she needed. She left incredibly happy with a big smile on her face, literally gave me a hug with tears coming down her eyes. That's what it's about, man. That's what it's about, is really making a difference in people's lives and knowing that their retirement's going to be better because you helped them.
We say it every week on the show. You got to have a plan in place when it comes to your financial future. And Tim, let's be honest, it's not a matter of if, but when life is going to happen, whether it's an emergency fund, whether it's the loss of a spouse, things that you might not even be on your radar at this point as you get into retirement. These are all things that Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement can help you plan for now to avoid those headaches later. 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233. That website again is safemoneyretirement.com. Again, it's safemoneyretirement.com. All right, coming up next, we're going to tell you how to avoid some tax mistakes if you plan on leaving your house to your heirs. And later on, if you've saved enough and keep saying, I'm going to work one more year, we'll tell you how you can break out of that one more year trap. We'll get to that and more as we continue with the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood, coming up right after this.
Hey, it's Glenn Beck. Do you still have all of your retirement money at risk in the market? Most know that I don't do that. It's way too dangerous, in my opinion, at least. The fact the market could fall off a cliff tomorrow, yet many don't have an expert you can trust. Let me tell you about Tim Wood. Now, he's the owner of Safe Money Retirement. That's a certified financial fiduciary and a best-selling author. I met Tim personally, and I can tell you that he and his team can help you plan your own guaranteed lifetime income streams to cover you and your spouse and grow your money while protecting it from a market crash. Go to safemoneyretirement.com/Beck or call 800-913-SAFE to schedule a no-obligation free 15-minute discovery call with Tim. You know I just don't trust anyone, and so do your own homework with Tim at safemoneyretirement.com/Beck and book your free discovery call with Tim online or call 800-913-SAFE and get started today.
And we welcome you back into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. As always, we are here with the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary, Tim Wood. My name's Kevin McAlpin, and of course, Tim and I hope you're having a wonderful day, and we thank you so much for making this show part of your routine, helping you put that plan in place for your retirement. Maybe you're tuned in today, you said, I'll get to that next month. Well, guess what? The holidays are here. Before you know it, it's 2026, and you're starting all over again. If you've been putting off planning for your retirement, put it off no further. Have that conversation with Tim Wood, 800-913-SAFE. Again, that number is 800-913-7233. The website again is safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, a lot of folks listening today probably feel like when our kids grow up, we might not need that big, fancy 4 or 5 bedroom house anymore, and they might think about downsizing. But guess what? Today, that's not necessarily the case. A new study I saw from Clever Real Estate finds that 50% of boomers say they never plan to sell their homes. Why? Well, they've got a great mortgage rate, or maybe having a paid off home gives them some more spending income. But Tim, let me ask you this. When our kids inherit the house, what are some things they need to know? What are some mistakes you'll want to try to steer clear of now to avoid some surprises later down the road?
Well, some of the biggest mistakes that I see kids when they inherit, whether it's a house or it's someone's financials or it's any of that stuff, is they just make rash decisions. And now it really depends on how old the kids are. If they're in their 20s or 30s, man, chances are they're going to make some really stupid decisions like we did in our 20s or 30s, right? I mean, come on. And they're going to say, well, I don't care if it kicks me up to the 38% tax bracket. I want all the money right now, instead of doing it smartly and keeping yourself at, say, 22 or wherever you are. I mean, so and I see the same thing in real estate. So yeah, but the older someone gets, as you get into the 40s, you start getting a little smarter money-wise. And then the 50s, you're really turning the corner, and, and then moving on from there, it's a lot better. But the younger people, that's really where you see the challenges in real estate and with everything, not making wise decisions with the inheritance. And then on the other side, I think one of the reasons that a lot of people want to stay in their home is comfort. I mean, there are reasons that, yes, the mortgage is paid off and I don't want to have to pay something monthly. Of course, is that a consideration? Yes. But they don't want their family to ever have to take care of them. And this is where we've lived for 10, 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 or 60 years, sometimes even longer. So that is one of the biggest things, is I think this is home, and that's important to people, especially as they age, that whole thought of home and being at home instead of being, having to be in some facility somewhere.
We know that downsizing used to be pretty much one of those, I don't want to say rules of thumb. It used to be the norm, I guess, is the way to look at it. We know the housing market has certainly changed over the last even 5, 10, 15 years. Do you feel like maybe some of the shifts we've seen in that market maybe that's not the new norm, or maybe this is the new norm, is where, you're getting to that point, you're not downsizing, you're holding on, you got that good interest rate. You don't want to do anything different. Is that maybe you see like a shift in the landscape a little bit?
You just said two things that are huge. Yes, I have people right now that want to downsize, but they've got a mortgage that is at an extremely low rate. And as we know, rates right now are not extremely low. I mean, they're not massive like they were in the 80s, but they're not low. So yeah, there are some people that are holding off. I don't know. I would say it's a pretty good mix. I mean, I do have some people that just want to stay in their big home and they convert one room into an office and they convert another room into their gym, and they do that. But then I also see the people that I had clients in here yesterday that wanted to downsize, but they can't right now because they've got such a low rate in this big house and 4 acres and 2 laundry facilities. This guy was telling me, I mean, this house they've got is huge, and they got it with the intention of living there for a few years, fixing it up and turning around and making a huge chunk, and I'm sure they will. But rates are so high now compared to what they were when they got the mortgage, they're holding off on doing anything to see what happens with the rate. So yeah, that is a huge consideration.
If you're thinking about downsizing, or maybe you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're thinking, you know what, I'm not going to downsize, I'm staying in my home, whether it's the emotional attachment or maybe you're just not sure what steps to take when it comes to making that big decision, Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement, they are here to help. Folks, keep this number handy. We do have teammates standing by to get you on Tim's calendar right now. 800-913-SAFE. Again, folks, that number is 800-913-7233. That website, once again, is safemoneyretirement.com. It's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, here's something that I bet a lot of folks listening today can relate to. They've saved enough to retire, but they keep on saying, you know what? I'm just going to work one more year. And it might be likely due to that purpose of getting out of bed every morning, or maybe you're afraid of being bored in retirement. Maybe it's health insurance related as well, or maybe you just don't mind an extra couple of bucks along the way. But Tim, for listeners who may have fallen into the one more year trap, how can you help sort of set them free when it comes to putting that plan in place?
Man, that's always a great meeting. When I meet with someone and they think they're going to need to work longer and we run all the numbers and we find, hey, man, no, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good now if you want to be. It's an absolute, that's one of my favorite meetings, is when I get to give people that kind of news. But some of the things that people really need to make sure that they focus on, you nailed a bunch of them. Making sure, this is something that I talk to almost every client, and it's really, really big, and it has really kind of nothing to do with financial, but making sure you've got a purpose. I had a client in here a few days ago, and she said, I'm really passionate about foster children, but I don't feel like I can bring any in just because of my situation. Well, you can still work with foster kids and help and volunteer and do things. Find something you're passionate about. That is something that's going to make you want to get up in the morning, because what you don't want is, you don't want to retire and your day consists of sitting around watching Sally Jesse Raphael popped in my head. I know she's not on anymore, but it's going to show my age, isn't it? Sit around watching Oprah. If that, you don't want that to be your day. You need to have something that gets you up and gets you moving. But on top of that, you also need to have a financial plan of, when is it going to happen? How are you going to put these pieces together? And one of the things that I always suggest to people, especially when they're in that one more year mentality or just scared of retiring at all, is to test it out. I call it a part-time retirement in my book. But test it out. There are a lot of people that do that. If you've worked for somewhere for a whole bunch of years, I bet you if you went to them and said, listen, I'm considering retirement, but I don't want to pull the whole plug right now. Could I go from 40 hours a week down to 20? So they might let you do that and still keep your insurance. So now you don't have to worry about getting insurance in the marketplace or somewhere else, because people, that is really expensive, really expensive if you're just going out to buy coverage for yourself. So if you can stay until you can get on Medicare, that's always a bonus. And if you can do it, kind of on a part-time basis, and the employer will work with you and let you stay on that's an absolute great thing. But that part-time retirement, trying it out. I've also got some clients that wind up just becoming a consultant for whatever it was they used to do, and they can do that I've got some that do it on vacation. They take a couple hours a day, and they put up a green screen behind them, and they do Zooms, and the people don't know they're not in their office and wherever in Charlotte. They don't know they're not there and that they're in England. So, and then lastly, making sure that your goals are changed and reassessed every single year. That's why with my clients, we do an annual review, because things change. Life events happen. You need to take people off and add people on, and you might need more income now or whatever. Make sure that your goals are constantly reassessed so you can make sure you've got the most success you can going through retirement.
Do you find that fear of boredom, maybe people underestimate, like that's a bigger fear than most people realize? Is that again, we go back to the sort of the psychology of the side of what you do. Is that something you've noticed a lot?
I have noticed. Well, I think it's more that, yes, some people are afraid of it, but when it actually, I think a lot of people don't even think about that. They don't think they're going to be bored. I think a lot of my clients think, I don't want to ever have to deal with Bill again, my boss. I'm done. Okay, well, what are you going to do? That's a conversation I have with every single client. What you going to do?
Right.
When you leave, you got to have a plan, not just for your money, but what are you going to do? You personally, what's your plan? How are you going to stay connected at church and with your friends and going to lunch with people and going on trips and doing things, staying involved with life, basically? I mean, it's a really big thing, and it's part of how people can make sure they have their own safe money retirement.
If you're tuned in today, maybe you've fallen into that one more year trap, and you just say, you know what, one more year, and that one more year turns into 3 or 4 or 5, and you're still working, even though you probably can retire. You'd like to learn more. You'd like to put that plan in place for your future. Folks, keep this number handy. Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement are just a phone call away, and we do have operators standing by to get you scheduled on Tim's calendar. 800-913-SAFE. Again, folks, that number is 800-913-7233. The website, again, is safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. Well, Tim, this half hour, this show has just zipped right on by, and we're very quickly running out of time. But before we do, sir, the floor is all yours for the final word.
I will make it brief because I know we are running short on time. The biggest thing I wanted to kind of touch again on is that spending volatility that we discussed at the very beginning of this show and how it really can affect your retirement. And you need to make sure you've got a plan for that so that your retirement income can adjust based on whether you need more or you need less. If you need less, let it keep growing. And if you need more, you need to be able to use it. You need to have a plan that you can, and again, in football terms, call an audible every single year and figure out what you need to do and how you need to do it so you can have your own safe money retirement.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified, licensed insurance professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.